Nicki Minaj is furious and Lemon is her target. After Don live-streamed a protest that interrupted a Minnesota church service over alleged ICE ties, Nicki took to X and went nuclear, y'all, calling him a homophobic slur and demanding he be locked up. Lemon, completely unbothered, he fired back saying Nicki doesn't understand journalism and calling her a pygmy doll. Now here's where it gets messy. The White House has entered the chat. Trump's press secretary says he doesn't tolerate harassment of Christians, and the DOJ is investigating the protest. Meanwhile, Nicki, a vocal Trump supporter, y'all, is standing 10 toes down. So here's the real question. Is this about protecting churches, silencing protests, or celebrities crashing out online over politics they don't fully understand? Because once politics, religion, and celebrity beef mix, it isn't about the truth anymore. It's about control. Crazy.
Lemon has been in nonstop antics ever since he left CNN, Exhibit A, and now he's going viral again. So an attorney for Wigs R Us says they're looking at bringing criminal charges against Lemon. Don, do you have your lawyer ready? Over the weekend, Lemon was in Minneapolis, doing boots on the ground coverage, interviewing protesters, and during the stream, they said they're about to pull up into a church and interrupt worship because the pastor was allegedly one of the HBICs at the Frozen Water Agency, so they pulled up to the church. The administration says that Don knew what was about to happen because he interviewed the protesters beforehand, and he still went in as they went in, and so they're saying that he was a part of the conspiracy, knew about the conspiracy, and furthered the conspiracy, and so they're about to press charges because it's illegal to intentionally interfere with people exercising their right to worship. The other side of that is, look, was Don participating or was he just documenting and being a journalist? Because on the stream, he was very clear. He was like, I am not with these people. Please be clear. I am just chronicling this. I am a journalist and this is journalism. So to me, these criminal charges feel like a stretch. I think Don can definitely beat this one, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section.
I thought Nicki would be taking a break to start the year because of how the year ended for her last year, but I was wrong. And this time she's coming for Lemon and saying that he needs to be put in jail. For those of you who are unaware, the reason that she thinks that Lemon needs to be placed in jail is because he was doing his job and covering a story as a journalist in Minnesota. Lemon was covering a protest that was happening outside of a church because the pastor of the church, I believe, is in support of what is going on in Minnesota. Now, that seemed to piss Nicki Minaj off because she is on this whole Christian tour where she is celebrating Christianity and wanting people who in any way are disrupting Christianity to be persecuted, I guess. But my question is, and will continue to be, is whether or not you believe that people who are of the Christian faith should be supporting what is happening. And I know the answer to that question might be yes, given the fact that Nicki Minaj sat in front of Erica Kirk and praised everything that was happening with this current administration. A lot of this just feels like one big contradiction, if you ask me.
So let's slow this down, because this isn't just celebrity drama and it's not free speech cosplay either. What happened in Minnesota was protest inside a church accused of cooperating with ICE. Lemon was there documenting it, live streaming it, doing exactly what journalists are supposed to do, showing events as they happen without sanitizing or spinning them. Now enter MAGA Nicki Minaj. Instead of questioning power, ICE, or why a church is being accused of working with immigration enforcement, she jumps straight to calling for arrest and jail. Not for politicians or agencies, but for a journalist. That's not criticism, that's escalation. That's demanding state punishment for someone doing their job while hiding behind the same free speech erotic MAGA claim to defend. And that's where the FAFO begins. The moment a celebrity calls for arrest over journalism, the whole conversation shifts from opinions to hypocrisy, power, and motive. That's why the backlash exploded, why this didn't stay online, and why Nicki lost control over the narrative. In this video, the clips speak for themselves, the reactions, the callouts, the receipt. Because when someone chooses MAGA talking points over basic principles, the consequences don't need exaggerations. So let's go into the video, and please consider subscribing if it's your first time to this channel. Let's go into the video.
Why is Nicki Minaj calling for Lemon to be arrested as if she's a U.S. citizen? As if she came into this country legally?
On MLK Day, Nicki MAGA Minaj and other conservative voices are calling for the arrest of journalist Don Lemon. And why? Because he reported on a protest in Minneapolis where organizers targeted a church for harboring a lead pastor who's also a top ICE agent. Let's get into it. So organizers with the Racial Justice Network disrupted services at City's Church in St. Paul, and their target was Pastor David Easterwood, who is the acting field office director for ICE in Minnesota. Now, the community members, including a lawyer and a reverend, called it shameful for a house of worship to harbor someone who was responsible for directing the mass deportation on their community. So Don Lemon was there too, and he live streamed the entire thing. The church's head pastor, Jonathan Parnell, had a big problem with the demonstration, calling it shameful for interrupting worship. But it's not shameful for a man responsible for directing mass deportation raids that kidnap community members to be leading a congregation? Got it. And Nicki MAGA Minaj, along with other conservatives, are calling for the community members who called this out and Don Lemon to be arrested. And the DOJ is trying to stick their nasty, dirty little claws in this as well. They claim they're investigating the community members for supposedly violating laws that protect religious services. So for now, the folks who disrupted the service could face federal charges, while the pastor with the double life directing ICE gets to play the victim. Ain't no hate like Christian love.
At this point, the mask is completely off. This is no longer about Nicki Minaj sharing an opinion or disagreeing with Don Lemon. This is about a celebrity aligning herself with state power and openly calling for arrest over journalism and protest. What's missing from all this outrage is telling. There is no concern about ICE, no concern about why a church is accused of cooperating with immigration enforcement, and no concern for the people affected. The focus is on punishment. Arrest this person, jail that person, silence the camera. That's not law and order. That's intimidation. And it only seems to matter when coverage makes certain people uncomfortable. When entertainers stop questioning authority and start demanding arrest, something shifts. That's not rebellion, it's compliance. And the whole story shows that being useful to power may feel bold in the moment, but it never ages well. Let's continue.
And at this point, Nicki Minaj deserves an award for starting the most random beefs in the world. Because what do you mean Nicki Minaj and Don Lemon was going at it today? I don't understand what's happening. So basically, Nicki Minaj kind of tweeted about Don Lemon for doing interviews in Minnesota at the church protest. And Don Lemon got on here and said, girl, you're talking about me. You need to be deported according to Trump's rules, okay? You're sitting up here talking about me. You're a pick-me, honey. Why are you talking about me? Worry about your family members. Worry about your husband. Worry about your brother. You're worried about me. Y'all, I hope that in 2026, someone just takes Nicki Minaj's phone for a little bit. I would love for her to go on a hiatus. Nicki, if you watch this, go on a hiatus, okay? Then come back with an album. Drop the album so we can forget all of this that's been happening. You know, just drop the album so we can forget all of this that's been going on, because you want to savage some of your legacy. I don't know. She just starts the most random beefs, and this is something I was not expecting today, on Martin Luther King's day, of all days.
Nicki Minaj is facing heavy backlash after posting a series of angry and offensive tweets aimed at Don Lemon. The tweets were triggered by Don Lemon's reporting on a protest that interrupted a church service in Minnesota. Nicki reacted online with all-caps messages, calling Lemon names and using a homophobic slur. She also accused him of being biased and went as far as saying he should be locked up. The post spread fast and immediately caused outrage. Many people said Nicki crossed a serious line, especially because Lemon is openly gay. Critics called her language hateful and irresponsible, saying there was no excuse for attacking a journalist this way. Don Lemon responded quickly. He told TMZ that Nicki does not understand journalism and said she should stop commenting on things she clearly does not understand. His response added fuel to the online fight. The internet reaction has been intense. Some fans tried to defend Nicki, saying she was reacting emotionally, but many others said her tweets were unacceptable and damaging. Right now, the focus is not on the church protest anymore. The focus is on Nicki Minaj's tweets, her choice of words, and why she decided to attack Don Lemon so aggressively. This social media blow-up has turned into one of the loudest celebrity controversies of the week.
This backlash didn't appear out of thin air. It wasn't random outrage or people being overly sensitive. It was a direct response to someone crossing a line and then acting surprised when consequences followed. The tweets are public and the meaning is clear, calling for a journalist to be arrested for documenting a protest isn't nuance or satire. It's authoritarian energy backed by celebrity influence. And when documenting reality becomes framed as a crime, that says everything about the politics behind the reaction. That's why questions started calculating about motive, money, and alignment. Not because of hate, but because patterns matter. FAFO isn't about canceling a bad take, it's about watching someone choose power and punishment, then realizing influence works both ways. Let's continue.
Y'all don't read. So I know that you don't know that pro-black actually has a definition, and in its definition it has nothing to do with who you choose to lay next to. Trying to discredit Don Lemon as being pro-black because he chooses to have a partner who happens to be white does not, like, it means nothing. Be very clear, the kids in Minnesota are not in school right now. They are like logged into remote learning. What's happening in Minneapolis has like spread so far that it's not safe right now for the kids to go to school. And you know where I learned that? The internet. If you turn on CNN, MSNBC, NBC, wherever you get your legacy news from, you cannot turn on that news channel and see a live depiction of what's happening right now. And that's so dangerous. It's so scary because that puts us right back in Anne Frank territory. Trying to discredit or demean the work that Don Lemon is doing doesn't take you no further from us thinking that you work for the MAGA people. Like, you trying to deter us is actually a job that they sent you on. How much did you get paid, Nicki Minaj? Again, for context, there is a group in Minnesota. They are called Operation Pull Up. This is a clandestine operation. They go to where the frozen water people are inside of Minnesota and they disrupt. Now, a place that this was happening just recently, which is why we're talking about it in the news, was a church. This pastor is allegedly employed by the frozen water people. So they pulled up. Don Lemon spoke to them. He spoke to people in the congregation and in the audience, and he was live on the ground getting footage of them disrupting this church service led by the frozen water employed pastor. Later on, because journalism has to be fair, you have to be non-biased, right? Which means that you have to speak to everybody. So Don speaks to the pastor, one, to get his point of view, and then two, to like educate him on First Amendment rights. Why you don't know that as an adult, I don't know. Somehow, some way, Miss Itty Bitty Piggy is on the internet dragging Don Lemon for interviewing this pastor as if the pastor was the only person that Don Lemon spoke to. Now, again, to be very clear, Don Lemon is the only person doing the journalistic work, right? Don Lemon's channel is the only place that you can go, turn it on, and see in real time as an American what the fuck is happening next door on American soil. Work like that needs to be pushed, especially in this era of fake news and propaganda. I don't know why this man is running the same playbook, and I don't know what's not clicking for y'all, Steven.
At the end of the day, this wasn't about Don Lemon. It was about power, loyalty, and who gets protected when the spotlight gets uncomfortable. Journalism didn't suddenly become illegal. Protesting didn't suddenly become criminal. What changed was who felt exposed. Nicki Minaj made a choice, not just to speak, but to escalate, to side with punishment over principles. And once that line gets crossed, the response is predictable. Influence invites scrutiny. Celebrity doesn't override accountability. And shouting arrest them doesn't magically turn documentation into a crime. This is why the FAFO label fits, not because of single tweet, but because of pattern. Free speech until it challenges authority, law and order until it's applied unevenly. Outrage when consequences shows up. That contradiction is what people reacted to, not some imaginary cancel mob. So the clips are here, the words are public, the reactions are real, nothing needed to be exaggerated or taken out of context. When someone chooses talking points over principles, the outcome writes itself. If this video added value, hit the like button, subscribe if it's your first time to this channel, and share it. Share to anyone who think needs to hear this. The conversation doesn't end here. It starts in comments. So comment below what do you think about MAGA Nicki Minaj. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all, and I wish you peace and love. Be safe where you are. See you to the next video. Bye-bye.